Good morning and welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish, where you learn to build your business, your avatar, your books, your products, and your services in a very meaningful way that actually gathers an audience and you're not left floundering. I want to invite you guys to go over and take our Promote, Profit, Publish quiz. You can find it at www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com and find out if your skill set is where it needs to be to launch your product, program, and service today. I have a fabulous guest today, the most handsome man on the face of the earth, as we established right before he got on. Yes, he's smiling now. I have Aaron Young with us today, and he is a renowned entrepreneur with over 30 years experience and several multi-million-dollar companies under his belt. Aaron has made it his life's work to arm business owners with successful formulas that immediately provide exponential growth and protection. He fully embodies the concept of the unshackled business owner, and he inspires others to do so by empowering them to build strong companies while proactively protecting their dreams. This is what Aaron knows. Okay, listen up, listen up. This is what Aaron knows. When you have the right systems and culture in place, you can build a business that works for you, one that's optimized for cash flow, growth, and progress. And all three of those are super important. A lifelong entrepreneur, trusted advisor to CEOs, and creator of the Unshackled Owner, a program for entrepreneurs looking to build a business, not just a glorified job, which a lot of you do have, admit it right now. Aaron is armed with the expertise needed to quickly get to the heart of complex issues, identify solutions, and illuminate the path for progress forward. His unique vantage point sets him apart from the crowd as a voice of real-world knowledge and authority. Welcome, Aaron.
Well, it's so nice to be here with you. I think that bio was written like maybe for a book or something. And I think when we sent you bios, that must be the long one. Because it's really long.
That's actually the medium one. And I always, it's so funny because so many other podcasts, they like read these separately and demo them in. And it's always fun to watch the look on your face as someone's reading your bio and you're kind of like, whoa, how good am I? So, my internet connection just went a little bit stable. Are you back? Unstable. You're back.
I'm here. People have accused me of being unstable a lot of times. But I didn't see it on my screen this time. So I guess we've got the blind leading the blind here, or the crazy leading the crazy.
We do.
Say that all again. I said we had a long bio. You said medium bio. And that was the last thing I heard.
Oh, I love reading people's bios when they're on, because a lot of times the bio gets done separately on shows. And it's always fun to watch people go, whoa, look how awesome I am. Or they'll tell me after the show, they'll be like, oh, that was really embarrassing. Like nobody ever reads it in front of me.
No, I'm glad you read it. But because there's so much truth in it, but when there are words like renowned, it depends on which pond you're fishing in, if I'm renowned. But the truth is, I have been doing this for 35 years of starting and buying and selling companies. And I have only had one job during that time. And I was recruited for that. And it was the vice president of sales for a pretty large publicly traded multinational financial services company. We had 350 offices around the world and big board NASDAQ company. And I had just crashed a company into the dirt in a massive epic explosion of failure. And I got invited to lunch by this guy that I knew kind of, we went to the same, not the same congregation, but we're members of the same church. I grew up Mormon. I was a Mormon almost all my life. And anyway, I just knew he had a really good car. And he asked me out to lunch and he said, would you be interested in a job? I know I see you in the newspaper, on TV. I know your business closed. Would you be interested in a job? And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm so utterly unqualified to have a job. I've never had a job. And I was young. I was 29. And I was like, I'm sure I'll let you down in some way because I've never had a job. I don't have a college education. you have a nice car, and I had a good car, but not that nice. But the point is that I said, what's the job? And he said, vice president of sales of this company. And I was like, maybe the company's not as cool as I thought it was.
Way to love yourself, dude.
Oh, but have you ever been in, like, I would never be a member of a club that would have me, kind of a thing?
Yes.
So I did have that job from 93 to 96, which was great. And then I saw him walking in one day. So we were in this big building, and you went up a central elevator, and there was a sky bridge. So I had gone up the elevator. I was going across the sky bridge, and I could see the parking lot, and I saw the CEO walking in. And I went back down. I said, hey, let's go to lunch. This is the same guy that took, or not lunch, breakfast. Same guy who had taken me to lunch 3 years before. He goes, right now? I said, yeah, we need to talk. So we go to the little cafe there in the building. And I said, I want to give you my notice. And he was like, what are you talking about? I said, it's your dream. It's not my dream. So I need to give you notice. I'll say as long as you want, but I'm officially giving notice. I didn't go in that morning expecting to leave a very lucrative circumstance. But, entrepreneurs, people that have something inside of them, can only live underneath that basket for so long before they have to let that light shine, right? And so, using some biblical references there, but I didn't even mean to go down there. But anyway, but the point is that if it's inside of you, you long to get it out. And you work with a lot of authors, and authors have something inside that they're trying to get out. The challenge I see with most authors is they get it out, but then they don't know what to do with it except for store the boxes in their garage. So, we need to talk about how do you help people be successful once they've decided they're going to let their music out. I just went off on a ramble.
That's okay. It was a really good ramble. So one of the things I'm seeing so much of, the reason I ask you on today, because you are a business guru, are people who decide that they want to be an author. Like you said, they're getting their message out to the world, or they're putting out a coaching shingle or a small business, consulting business that helps in some way. But they're not actually setting up the business in a way that will benefit them. And what I mean by that is I'm seeing a lot of people they haven't set up a bank account, they haven't set up an entity, they haven't set up anything. And I really wanted to talk about that because that's sort of the first step to getting all of this going, is being able to do that. So can you talk a little bit about some of the business entities that they should really seriously think about, and how this benefits them?
Sure. But, why do you, I'll ask you an answer, okay? Because that was a very good point. So there's a great book called The Artist's Way. The Way of the Artist, The Artist's Way. Are you familiar with the book?
I am familiar with the book, yes.
All right. Well, and in there, it talks about this idea of audacity, and that a lot of artists, the difference between a very, very talented artist and a financially successful artist is audacity. The successful person, it's not that the art isn't even necessarily as good as some other art that they could compare themselves to. It's that the audacious person will sign their name. They'll tell people, I'm an artist or I'm an author, right? They find places to sell their books or sell their paintings. They put a price on it. They don't just give them away because, I think this will really help somebody. No, they put a price on it and they demand their price. The audacity is what separates the hobbyist from the successful entrepreneur. And just because you go to the effort, you spend the hours writing, or you hire a ghostwriter, or you go through a program, or whatever mechanism you use to get that book to reality, the physical thing exists now. If you don't tell people you're an author, if you don't just, I don't mean just stick it on your website, because who's going to your website, right? Who's going to that landing page? Almost probably nobody, unless you're really investing money. So how do you get your work out in front of people and exchange value? You're not selling anything, you're just exchanging value, right? Here's something that I've learned, and you're going to give me $20. Okay, so there you go. Now, so we have transactions. But the people that are not successful, the ones who are not audacious, are the ones who see their book or whatever it is they've produced as either not worthy, or it's just a side thing that I've done. I don't really take it seriously. But if you want to be an author, speaker, coach, if you want to take your message that you've put down and it's manifest on paper now, and you want to sell your expertise, then you've got to start being audacious. So that's first thing. You have to at least tell people you have something that's available to them. You have a cure for the thing that ails them, and there's a price for it, and we can exchange value. That's one. Two, if you start to get comfortable with that, where you start to make money, you don't have to make a lot of money, just some money. Because the way that the government looks at this is, if you're organized as a business. Now, let me say it differently. If you're organized in a corporation or an LLC, and you're endeavoring to make money and to grow a coaching program or speaking program, all the work that you're putting into trying to build that brand and launch that career, even though you're spending more than you're making, right? The government says if you're properly organized, you can write all of those expenses off that are associated with it. And if you're a C corporation, the difference between what you made and what you spent, in other words, so if you're a corporation or LLC, an S corp or an LLC, you can write off everything associated with growing your brand. But if you're a C corporation, the difference, the additional amount you spent, can be carried forward. They call it a tax loss carry forward. And you can carry it forward for up to 20 years. So if you're spending a lot of money up front to develop a business, much more than you're earning, and you're a C corp, you can carry that difference forward next year and the next year. And as you start to make profits, you can push those profits down, the taxable amount of them down, with your tax loss carry forward. So there's one thing. If you're thinking you're going to have more tax write-offs, and they don't have to be specific, like I went to a seminar, so I got to write it off. It could be, I drove to the seminar, I had to eat on the way to the seminar. There were actually 2 seminars, and I stayed in between. So those 3 nights in between or whatever can also be written off. And I paid for VIP, and that's helping me with my networking, and I can write that off. You can not just deduct, but you can defend your deductions, right? If you're set up as an entity, and there are thousands, literally thousands of deductions sole proprietors don't get that an S corp or an LLC or a C corporation get. So the deductions are way up. More of your life can be pre-tax, because what else could you do? Well, I need to have a coach. I need to have I need to see a counselor. I need to re-carpet my office. I need, all these things can become deductions. I need to work out. I need to meditate. You know, I don't know. I mean,
does that work?
There's a pretty famous case that now is just a fact in the stripper world. A stripper wanted to write off her breast augmentation, and the IRS said no, and they went to court, and the judge said no, that's a legitimate business expense, so that's fine. Well, that person, or having a guard dog for your house, you know, can you write off your dog because it warns people, and you run your business from there? There are thousands of things that can enhance your life that you just can't have as just Aaron Young selling Aaron Young's books out of Aaron Young's house. You can't, that's not it. But if I go from Aaron Young to Aaron Young Incorporated, changes everything. Changes everything.
That makes a lot of sense. And the other part too with that is the bank account. The IRS doesn't favorably look at you commingling business with your personal, does it?
Well, so if you're a sole proprietor, you don't need a special bank account because you and the enterprise that you're involved in are the same. So if your business, quote unquote, if your activity, your going concern of selling books, speaking, coaching, gets sued and you're a sole proprietor, then everything you own, your home, your mortgage equity or the equity in your real estate, your savings account, your kids' college money, your cars, your painting above the sofa, all of it is up for grabs. If a corporation or an LLC is, in the eyes of the law and the IRS, a separate person from you. It's not you, it's something else. And this other paper person can that ship can sink without you going down with the ship, right? That paper person can die and you can go on living. It can get sued and lose everything without it bleeding into your personal estate. So that's why we use business entities, is to separate our assets and reduce our liability. We don't have everything up for grabs. We just have this little part up for grabs that's in, like, the book, or the intellectual property in the book could get lost in a lawsuit, but your home, your car, your savings, your whatever else, your idea for your next book doesn't get lost. Just whatever's in that one entity. And so that's why people use entities. Now, if you're going to have an entity like a corporation or limited liability company, then because it's not you, should have a bank account. And more than that, it has to have a meeting. So the shareholder or the member has to have a formal meeting and create a document called a resolution that lets Bank of America know that it's okay to open a bank account for you. So if that's news, hold on, somebody right now listening to this is going, that is not right. Because I went into the bank and I didn't have a resolution and they gave me a bank account for my company. So he doesn't know what he's talking about. Ha ha ha. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to tell you, the bank, which is obligated by law to have a board resolution, they have a generic one they print out. They ask you, are you authorized to open this account? Are you a board member or an officer? And you go, yeah, I'm the president. Or yeah, I'm the only owner. They go, okay. And they put it in and you signed it and you didn't even know, because the bank isn't allowed to open a bank account for a business, for a corporation or LLC, without a board resolution. So there's a lot going on amongst the companies that are really highly regulated and in the know. They're going to make sure that, at least from their perspective, you're compliant to do that one thing. The thing is, there are many, many hundreds of items that need to be documented formally for a corporation or LLC. All of them require meetings and then board resolution. And there's just so much going on that the average rank and file beginner who's trying to do it all right, they just don't know what they're even supposed to do. And that's why companies like mine, like Laughlin Associates, has been around 48 years and helped hundreds of thousands of companies, because in our little niche, which is forming entities and keeping them compliant, we have learned the skill set. So do they need a bank account? Yes. Should you be commingling funds? No. But if you're a sole proprietor, you can commingle anything you want, because you have no protection and you have no need to separate. Everything you're doing is just you. Mm-hmm. But there's such a better world waiting for you if you want to get incorporated.
Very good. Now, you said something there that just kind of pinged me. Last time I heard you talk, you actually talked, and I had a corporation when I was in California about those resolutions and those notes. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit about why those corporate notes, and I think I'm calling them by the right thing,
Minute,
the meeting
minutes.
notes, yeah, every month are so important to your corporate veil?
Ooh, that's perfect segue. I didn't even know you were going there. The,
Neither did I. No.
so the paper person, this entity and you, while you may be united in your goals, you may have put all the money in that company, you put it in there, you borrowed it, you maxed out your credit cards or whatever. It feels like your company. That's mine. The problem is when we think of ourself and the company, the corporation or LLC, when we think of that entity and us as one and the same, we're going to be all commingled, which doesn't reduce, it eliminates the asset protection and the tax deductions. If the government sees that paper person really is just your alter ego, and that's the legal term of art, alter ego. If it's just your alter ego, they say, you don't get all these deductions, you don't get this lawsuit protection, you don't get any of it. When they see that it's actually being treated as a separate entity from you, you're being respectful of the laws that make this thing up, then they will go to the ends of the earth to defend the separation between you and that paper person. That separation is known as the corporate veil, like a little piece of cloth, a veil.
So, Aaron, we've been talking about like the different corporate setups, and I just want to talk a little bit about the corporate veil and how that all works, because that is certainly an area where if you didn't have a setup like this, which you've talked about a little bit, the advantages and disadvantages, if you don't have that corporate veil, you're personally on the hook for some things, correct?
Yeah, this idea of corporate veil or corporate shield, it's called sometimes, is when you form a corporation or an LLC and you follow the rules associated with that, meaning you're having regular board meetings, you're keeping minutes, you're passing resolutions, you're not commingling money, and so on. When you do that, the government, both the IRS and the courts, see the entity as separate from you. And that separation is what they refer to as the corporate veil. And according to Cornell Law Review, the piercing of the corporate veil is now the most litigated issue in corporate law. And when you consider that there's a new lawsuit against a small business every 22 seconds in the United States.
Wow.
And the number one most litigated issue is, how do we get through the company and get to the owners and everything the owners own? So your mortgage, not your mortgage, your equity, your vacation home, your savings, any art or coin collections or other things you might have in your house of any value, the piano or whatever you've got, the art above the couch, all these kind of things. The prosecutor, who's very often working on commission, they call them contingency fee lawyers, they come after the company looking for deep pockets. And they always know that if they can pierce the corporate veil and come to the owner or owners and get all of their stuff up for grabs as well, the odds of either them getting a big resolution if they win or getting a bigger settlement if you decide to settle, goes way up. But if they get roadblocked, if they run into the corporate veil and they can't get through, then depending on how you've organized your business, odds are there's not a lot for them to get. And if you're organized well, you're not going to have a tremendous amount of value inside the company. As you've increased the value, of the business, you're moving pieces into separate entities. My business partner was next door neighbors with the CFO of Intel Corporation. And they were driving in the car one day, and the Intel guy said that he had close to 3,000 companies he was responsible for keeping track of. Most of them, the vast majority, had no employees, no location. They owned a piece of content. They owned a patent. They owned some little thing. And Intel had moved these all into separate little buckets so that if Intel gets sued, not all of their intellectual property is at risk. And that's what happens as you're building an empire. At first, there's not very much money. Then there's a little bit. Then there's more than you need to live on. And once you have more than you need to live on, then you go, what do I do with this money? Right? Well, I'm going to buy a rental property, or I'm going to buy a franchise, or I'm going to do something nice for something. What you want to do at that point is start separating things out so that it's not all available to be taken in a lawsuit. So the corporate veil is what gives you that separation between the entities and you, and keeps you safe. And everybody, well, not everybody, but most people that form a company, a corporation or LLC, they know that there's supposed to be protection, but they don't really know that they're supposed to be having regular board meetings. Like the law says, at or near the time of any significant decision, there must be a board resolution. And that includes things like opening a bank account, like you asked about before, or having the company pay for health insurance, or paying for your gym membership, or changing CPAs, or borrowing money, or loaning money, or signing a lease, or changing, well, I think I said changing CPAs. But there's hundreds and hundreds of these things that most of us think, well, it's my company, I do whatever I want. But if you do that, and if you're taking corporate deductions, if you're not doing your corporate compliance as perfectly as you're doing your tax compliance, you may find out that one day you get audited or sued and everything gets taken away from you. Pretty scary.
Yeah. And all the more reason to do this right. So you are the Unshackled Owner. Tell us about that.
Oh, for years, for over 3 decades, I just sort of had my head down, building my businesses, buying and selling companies, starting things. And a few years ago, it's probably about 4 years ago, so 2015, a couple of things happened. One, I spoke at a conference for exit planning lawyers. So in other words, the lawyers that help that successful privately owned company get sold and manage all the moving parts of the sale. So I got invited to come be the opening keynote speaker at the annual Exit Planning Institute conference. So there's like 500-600 lawyers sitting in this room, and they wanted me to talk about what do I look for in a company that I'm going to buy, or what do I do to get organized to sell a company. So I did that. And you would have thought that I just come down with the 10 commandments from, the mountain. It was pretty crazy that how fascinated all these professionals were with what I was doing. So I thought, wow, maybe people don't know about this. Then that was in April or May. And then my wife and I, we have a home on the Oregon coast. So we went down to the beach house for like 6 weeks. And I'll tell you what happens when you go on vacation for very long. The first little while, everybody's pretty excited for you, and they like all your pictures, and oh, that's so cool, and have fun, and oh, it's beautiful, and I love Oregon coast or whatever. Then the next couple of weeks after that, like week 3 and 4, people are going, wow, what are you doing, man? Go back to work. You're lazy. Then like week 5 and 6, they're going, what the heck? Like, how are you still there? How can you still be gone? Right? Because they know I own all this stuff. So how are you still there? And they start demanding answers. And it was so mind-boggling to me that so many people were freaked out by the way we just to live our day to day, that I thought, well, I wonder if anybody would want a class on what I do to build companies to where I don't have to go to work, right? Doesn't mean I never go to work. It means I work my butt off and then follow a program so that at some point I can extricate myself from the day to day. And the company you were just asking me about, Laughlin Associates, when I bought it, I was there 4.5 days a week. I'd travel from Portland down to Reno, actually Carson City, and I worked my butt off, long hours, 4.5 days a week. Would go home to my young family. This was 2001. Be home on the weekend, go back down. I did that for about 2 years, kind of absentee dad and husband. But then as we started getting the ship righted, then I could be there less often. Now, here we are in 2019, and I haven't walked in the door of the office for like 2.5 years. So I don't go there at all anymore. I have no plan to go there this year. There's just, right now, there's nothing on the horizon that would lead me to need to go do that. And I've done this repeatedly over 35 years. Built stuff up, moved myself out of it, kept it making money for me, or sold it. I could sell Laughlin. We get offers every year for Laughlin, but I love the company. I love the company. I love the people who work there. And it's this great thing that just works. It was broken when we bought it, but now it works. So the idea of being unshackled isn't about being retired and sitting on the beach in Bali with your laptop. And it's about I can be as involved or as uninvolved as I want. I can do what I love to do in the company, and I do. I love to go give the talks. So I travel all over the country and give talks on behalf of Laughlin. I run the mastermind, the inner circle for Laughlin, and I love it. And everybody knows I'm the owner, and everybody knows that I'm running it. And the clients don't know that I'm not involved in the day-to-day. But I'm not involved.
Unless they're listening to this podcast.
Well, it's not a secret. It's just not obvious because most people don't think that way.
Right.
The idea of being unshackled is having control of your life, time. Not only do you have money, but you have freedom to move around and do what you want to do. You have the flexibility to decide, do I start another company? Do I sell this company? Do I just do one thing? I'm the sales guy. I'm the sales manager. With Laughlin, and like I do with all my companies, I want to work myself to the position where I'm only the chairman. I'm the chairman. I'm looking out for the direction of the company. I'm making sure compensation, everything is right for the leadership, but basically leave the leadership team alone as long as they're meeting the objectives that I've laid out for them. But I'm not involved in how they do it as long as they get it done. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. Yes.
And so what we want to do is hire a team of people, in my case, that are smarter than me. I want everybody at that table, when I have a meeting with the leaders, I want everybody there to be smarter than me in marketing, IT, sales, HR, finance, whatever. Everybody, I should be the dumbest one at the table when it comes to any one of those topics. Mm-hmm. But I'm the one who's setting the goals and the direction. It's all based on my values and the objectives. In Laughlin's case, that Lee Morgan, my business partner of over 20 years now, he and I, what we want for that company. If it's one of my privately held businesses where it's just me, same thing. I meet with the leadership teams, and I'm just saying, here's the place we're trying to get. How are we doing in our progress? And my job is to help them be the best they can be at being successful at their job. But we always have a general manager or a president in those places. So I'm really just working with the president and the vice presidents. And that's it.
That's awesome.
So, and it's a formula. It's not magic. It's not luck. I've done this in recycling, in cellular phones, in financial services, in the corporation business, in the fix and flip business, in the land development business. And now add all to that, because the Unshackled Owner class has become so popular. Now we have the class, we have kind of a downsell to something called the Freedom Call, which is for people who they're just not ready for the main class yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're more solopreneurs trying to get their feet under them. They need an inexpensive place to plug in to hardcore business help, but for a solopreneur, right? So we have the Freedom Call, we have the Unshackled Owner class, we have the Unshackled Owner Intensive, we have our coaching, we have, which is like accountability coaching for people that have taken the class. And now we're starting to do more corporate stuff. So we're going in and doing Unshackled Leadership inside, big enterprise level companies. So what started off was trying to explain to people why I could stay at the beach for 6 weeks has now grown into a multi-million-dollar company that remains my side hustle.
See, that's what everybody's looking for right there. I thought I was doing well when I unplugged in California and plugged back in 2 days in Utah. So I'd probably be those freedom people. I'm not quite ready yet.
But here, you know what the thing is? So I had where did you say you are? Are you in Utah?
I'm in, Draper, Utah.
Okay. So there's a lawyer in Salt Lake who wanted to join the class, you know him. His name's Jason Webb.
Yeah, I know Jason.
Wanted to join, and he put it off for like 18 months. Then he bought, and he continued to put it off because he still didn't think he was ready. So then he finally started doing it. He was in the last group. So I know when people are watching or listening to a podcast interview, you may be getting this in 2020 or 2021, but he started the class in, I think, January, either the November class or the January class. And here right now we're at the beginning of April. He's now repeating. So it must have been the January class, because he's now auditing the new class, which you can do for free. The part of it is the first lesson we talk about defining the outcome, the very explicit outcome that we want to achieve. It's more than a vision. It's more than a dream. It's no, let's get ridiculously explicit about how we're going to measure success. And it's got to be measurable. Okay. So saying I'm happy is not measurable.
Right.
Okay. Fulfilled, excited, not measurable. You have to measure it. Okay. So he did that. He came back as he decided to come in for the following class, which was the beginning of March. He came back and he said, I need to redo my outcome, my vision statement. I said, wow, already? It's only been a couple months. He goes, I'm blown away by how many things I thought were 3 years out that have already happened by just following the process. So, wow. And I hear that all the time. As soon as if you want to make chocolate chip cookies, right? If you want to make chocolate chip cookies and you go into your pantry and you go, well, I don't know really what to do. There's probably sugar in them, and I know there's chocolate chips. Maybe there's some baking soda. I don't know. Maybe there's some salt. Maybe there's some, do I add water? Like, what do I do? And you start grabbing stuff and trying to figure it out on your own. Odds are you're going to get something less than desirable at the end of the baking experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a chocolate chip recipe and it's in front of you and you goes, oh, I need this much egg, sugar, flour, milk, butter, chocolate chips. I put this percentage in together. I heat the oven to this place. This is exactly what you do. Okay, everybody, this is a big secret. 20 minutes later, you will get chocolate chip cookies. Whereas if you had just tried to guess, you'd get some gobbledygook, and it could take you years to get to chocolate chip cookies. When you follow a recipe for chocolate chip cookies, you don't get a loaf of bread or a bicycle. You get chocolate chip cookies. Because when you follow the process works. The problem most entrepreneurs have is they're just groping around in the dark in the pantry and they don't know what the heck they're doing. So it's not that they're not good at the thing that they are promising. They're a great architect. They're a great website designer. They're a great landscape maintenance person. They're a great whatever. That has very little to do with business success. Being good at something is technician. If you go back and read the book, The E-Myth, they talk about the technician. And almost everybody that starts a business is a technician. They know how to fix cars or fix computers or fix, somebody's how they feel inside. They're going to be a coach or whatever, a counselor, a physician. Why are dentists and doctors some of the worst business people in the world? Because they learned how to be a great technician, not how to be a great business person. And just because you have a degree in business doesn't mean crap. It means nothing. It means you're trained to be an employee. Okay? I have 1 year of junior college, 1 year of what was then called Rick's College. And I don't even think I got grades that year. I was in their show choir. I was traveling around singing. I wasn't paying attention to school. I had my first company started during that time. And by the time I was 21, I was making more money than my dad. And then I sold the first company and I started the next one and then built from there. Owning and successfully running a business is wildly different than being a great technician. And the reason according to the last census, the average income of an entrepreneur is $25,000.
Oh, wow. Really?
Only 4% of companies ever break 1 million in revenue. Only 4%. Why? Because they are able to work to the level of their competency, and then that's it. They got nothing more. And so you're only going to be as good as you are. And the only way you ever get great is to bring in great people around you who lift you up, who augment you. Here's what I'm great at. Here's what I suck at. I need to hire people to fill the places that I suck. then we can be great together. But this is why people fail. This is why they struggle. You don't have to struggle, but what you do have to do is follow a system that actually will get you to where you want to go. You can get from Los Angeles to New York on your riding lawnmower. You can. They made a movie about a guy who went most of the way across the country on a riding lawnmower a few years ago. But you're going to go really slowly. You're probably going to get tickets because you can't really be on the freeway on your lawnmower. You're going to have trouble. You're going to have to take a long, circuitous route. Once you know how to do it, it's like you got on a private jet. You didn't even have to go through all the rigmarole of the airport. You pulled up, you got on the plane, and you got to where you wanted to go fast and elegantly. That's what happens. I'll give you one example. I have a thing coming up in May in Tuscany with my small elite mastermind group. I don't even offer, you can't buy it. I have to invite you. And I only have 12 people. I mean, it's just not for almost anybody. It's only for a few people that I invite. There was a point I wanted to make about going to Tuscany. We're going to be in Tuscany. Oh my gosh, I forgot what I was going to say about getting somewhere. Well, anyway, that's right. One of the people in the group owns a gigantic commercial farm in Canada. And he started the class last year. So I called him and I said, I'd love to invite you to be part of this. Our first event will be in May in Tuscany. He's like, yes, I'm in. I said, okay, great. He said, first, can I tell you why I'm so excited? It's not because we're going to Italy together. I said, what is it? He said, if you had asked me last year or any year before, I would have said no, because May is planting season here on the farm. and I would have had to be here, be working 14, 16 hours a day. But now I don't have a job anymore. I own it, but now I can be in Italy while they're doing it because the company is now set up where it works when I'm not there. How exciting is that?
That is very exciting. And I'm glad to hear you say that instead of I have to leave now because I'm going on my lawnmower.
Anyway, yeah, when you, it just, I don't mean to belabor it. People always say, well, what causes companies to fail? Why are there so many entrepreneurs that struggle? And I've been one of them. I mean, I've done it too. Just in short, there are 3 reasons most companies fail. First one is your idea is either ahead of its time, it's too early. You've developed a technology that there's not an infrastructure yet big enough to grasp onto it. So you're ahead of the wave, or your idea is a horrible, stupid idea, which is most of them. I have people come to me all the time and I go, your idea will not work. It's not going to work. But I'm so passionate about it. Who cares? Nobody cares if you're passionate. They only care if they want to buy it.
Right.
I hate to break it to everybody listening. You can be in as love with your idea as you want, but if the market doesn't want it, you will be that average entrepreneur at $25,000 a year. It's a bummer, but it's just true. So one is there's a problem with the idea. 2 is, let's say the idea is good. Second one is you don't have enough money to live and survive long enough to get the business built up to where it can take care of you. So if you don't, now you can do what Mark Cuban, the billionaire, did, which was go to McDonald's, grab the ketchup packages and squeeze the ketchup into his mouth because he couldn't afford a hamburger. So he was eating ketchup packets. He knew enough that you live low while you're building something, and you're paying employees while you're not paying yourself. Okay? This is how you grow to become wealthy, not to make a living, to make wealth. So second one is you don't have enough money. Third one is you have no plan. So you can be great at the service delivery, but you can't scale. And without scale, you can never get any bigger or wealthier than your personal calendar can allow. So however you can squeeze the most efficiency out of your hours is as big as you can ever get. And I don't care if you're getting $100,000 an hour to do coaching. I don't care. You still have a ceiling because you can't scale. And so when you solve the problems of we've got a good idea, we've got sufficient money, sufficient runway to launch it, and we've got a process, then all of a sudden you can go really fast. One of the companies that I just was talking about working with coaching their CEO, they just called me and said, the board called and said, would you work with this person? They've gone from 9 million to 120 million in sales in the last 7 years. 9 million to 120. That growth transcends and blows past the person who is running it at 7 or 8 or 9 million. So you've got to get help. And the biggest help is you've got to learn, how do I now become the leader of a company this size instead of this small one? This is the stuff I do. And I've worked with companies, 2,000 employees, 100 million in sales, multi locations around the world. I mean, if you know the system, you can scale. And if you don't know it, you'll flounder.
Very good. So how do we find you to get a hold of you and see what these programs are all about?
Yeah, you can go, Laughlin Associates, you can go to laughlinusa.com, L-A-U-G-H, so like laugh, Lynn, L-I-N, L-A-U-G-H-L-I-N, USA.com. We also had an operation in Europe for a number of years and in Canada. So we had Laughlin International and Laughlin USA, and that's why we've closed down the international stuff and we're Laughlin USA. And then if you want to find out about me and why I own Laughlin and why I own other companies, and how to do it and how to become an unshackled owner, you can go to aaronscottyoung.com.
Okay. And Aaron is A-A-R-O-N?
Aaron, Aaron, Scottyoung. Probably, I can see on my window here on the lower third, it says my name. So do you see that?
I can't see it. I don't know
Oh,
why.
Well, anyway, I see it on my side. Anyway, but it's aaronscottyoung.com. There's a ton of free stuff. They can get a free little book called The Critical 20, which is fantastic, if I do say so myself. They can download the Freedom Formula, the 7-step recipe to become an unshackled owner. And then there's my podcast is on there. There's all kinds of stuff there.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you so much for all this information today. I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people figure out what they need to get done in their businesses.
I hope so. Thank you for all you do. And thanks for the way you're helping these folks get out there and get their voice heard by the masses. It's really important.